Welcome to the Clear to Send podcast, a podcast about wireless engineering, where we educate you on Wi-Fi technology, talk about design tips, troubleshooting, interviews, and the tools. Here are your hosts, Roel and Francois.
Today's show is brought to you by Audible. Audible is offering our listeners a free audiobook with a 30-day trial membership. Just go to audibletrial.com/clear2send and browse the fantastic selection of audio programs. Download a title free and start listening. It's that easy. Again, go to audibletrial.com/clear2send. Hey everybody, thank you for joining us today on a brand new episode of the Clear to Send podcast. I am Roel Dionisio, your co-host, and I will be doing this episode solo today. I want to thank you guys for joining us because I really appreciate for everyone who has listened to the show and provided us their feedback and all the different comments they gave to us via email and also social media. And we also appreciate the sharing that you've done on social media for any episodes that you have enjoyed and wanted other people to take a listen. So if you have any other comments and suggestions, just go ahead and shoot it our way. We always appreciate that info. And once again, we greatly appreciate it. So in this episode, we're going to talk about our main topic, which is the four-way handshake. But before we get to that, we have a couple of things to go forward with. And again, with this episode, we're doing the 10 questions with Francois. This was a segment that we did back at Cisco Live in Orlando in 2018 this year. And so we're continuing with a brand new interview that we did with Alan Wang. And so here he is, Alan Wang.
What's your name?
Alan Wang,
Where do you live?
Vestal, New York.
Where were you born?
Syracuse.
What's special about that place?
It's my birthplace.
What's your job?
Network engineer at a university.
Why did you decide to do the work you're doing now?
I started off as a student employee, and I found I liked what I was doing, and my employer decided to hire me out of college.
What would you do if you were not doing Wi-Fi or networking?
Probably an engineering job in a cube somewhere.
What could you give a 40 minutes presentation on with absolutely no preparation?
Possibly photography.
What is something you think everyone should do at least once in their lives?
Play an instrument.
What do you think your job will look like in 10 years?
Mix of automation and human intervention when needed.
Thank you, Alan. Thanks.
There you have it. There's the 10 questions. He also won the giveaway we did during Cisco Live. We ended up doing a contest where people had to go find us and take a picture with us and share it on social media. He was one of the few people that was able to find us and get a picture with the both of us. He ended up leaving the conference with a free Cisco Press CCNA wireless study guide. And I met with him one of the, I think, second to last days of the conference. We went over to the bookstore there, and he decided which book he wanted with, and he went with the wireless CCNA wireless study guide. So, Alan, how's that studying going for you? Want to know how it's going? And I also didn't know he was into photography, so maybe we can connect via Instagram if you're on there. I just recently purchased a Sony Alpha A7 Mark III myself, and I've actually made quite the transition going from Canon to Nikon and now Sony. So here we are. But I haven't received my camera yet, so hopefully that comes in next week as it's actually back ordered. So let's get back into the show. We announced a while back ago that we were doing a contest where we were giving away the CWMP study guides for the CWS and the CWT. And we were going to select two people who were going to win both of those books, both the CWS and CWT. I think this would be a great study guide to get if you're getting into wireless, or if you're maybe selling wireless equipment and you want to better educate yourself on what you're selling. I think that's a great way to start and get your feet wet into the wireless industry. So we're happy to announce our two winners. The first winner is Michael Velasco from Sacramento, California, just a few hours away from me. I could probably drop this off at your house. So congratulations, Michael, on winning those two books, the CWS and CWT study guides. And our second winner is Baruch Eshedi from Oak Park, Illinois. So I want to congratulate you guys for winning. Thank you guys for participating and sharing that out there on social media. Thank you for filling out the form. I hope you guys enjoy those study guides. We'll mail that out to you, and you guys let us know how those exams went and what you guys thought about it, because they're fairly new exams from the CWNP, and they're actually going to be doing some training for the CWNP back in October for the Wi-Fi Trek. So just a heads up, guys, Mobility Field Day 3 is coming up soon. It's about less than a month. It's scheduled to take place from September 12th through the 14th here in Silicon Valley. So it's right here in my backyard. I've been fortunate enough to have attended since Mobility Field Day 1, right when they made the change from when it used to be called Wireless Field Day. So that means I'm happy to announce that I'll be a delegate this year for Mobility Field Day 3. And so that's coming up in less than a month. I want to get you guys, get that scheduled in your guys' calendar so you can watch the live stream and also participate in the conversations that we're going to have with some of the presenting sponsors that will be there. So Mobility Field Day 3, for those of you guys who don't know, it is an event that is put on by Tech Field Day, and they put on a lot of different wonderful events. Mobility Field Day is one of them. It actually used to be called Wireless Field Day, and I joined back in Mobility Field Day 1, like I said before. And so it's a place where they bring together incredible individuals who are called delegates from our wireless industry, and we get to hear from various Wi-Fi vendors. The delegates engage in conversations with these Wi-Fi vendors. They ask questions, and sometimes they even criticize the products that are being shown to us, or they are actually being just released out in public through Mobility Field Day. Now, we are allowed to criticize. We do it. We don't complain or we don't bash products, but we do have some criticism over some of the products that are released. And we do it in the open forum. We have a good discussion about it, and the vendor that is presenting actually goes into a deep dive of their product. So it's a really great place to learn a lot of information. And so in attendance, our delegate panel includes a handful of people. We have Amy Arnold, there's Jennifer Huber, Jim Palmer, Jonathan Davis, Keith Parsons, Lee Badman, Mitch Dickey, Robert Boardman, Sam Clements, Scott Lester, and Stuart Gummans, and also myself. So this is a really good group of wireless professionals in their industry. Every one of these guys has, great insight into their respective industries in their fields, in their verticals. So it's going to be interesting when we have these presenting sponsors, or they are the vendors, talk about their products. And so who are those presenting sponsors? That's going to be Aruba Networks, Cisco, Fortinet, Mist, NetScout, and Niansa. So it's an interesting lineup. Be interesting to see what they're going to talk about, whether that's existing stuff that's been announced or if there's anything new. Because one of the newer, I guess we haven't heard from them in a while at Mobility Field Day, is Fortinet, right? So they were at WLPC, and they spoke a little bit there about wireless, because they do have a wireless product, and they've had a wireless product even before they made the purchase of Maru. And so this is probably going to be a good presentation for Mitch, who runs single channel architecture, and hopefully they go into that with their presentation during Mobility Field Day. And it'll be interesting to see what else the other guys come out with, if there's anything new. And I'm sure we We have a lot of great minds in this on this delegate panel, so there's going to be a lot of good conversations. So I would highly recommend you guys watch the live stream and participate. So why would you even listen or watch the live stream? So, like I said, this event is going to be streamed live. In the past, with the previous mobility field days, we've gone, right on the dot and have started the discussions. We share out the links to where you can see this live stream, and I believe it's streamed live everywhere. It's on Facebook. It's on the Tech Field Day website. I'm not sure if you can find it anywhere else, but there's actually a great group of guys who run the live stream, and they do a fantastic job with the audio and all the different video cameras that are there in the room. So there's going to be a lot of good discussions with these vendors. Like I said, we may even get some new releases. It's happened in the past where something new is released, and it really triggers a lot of emotions or discussions. We get really detailed with these vendors, and hopefully they send the right people, because this is a very technical crowd and you can't really get away with just marketing speak. So we'll get our thoughts and opinions recorded on here. So some of us will be careful with what we say, and some of us will be more candid, because honestly, that's just why we're there, right? To provide some of this feedback and another way of getting communication out there to people who follow us, and to get these products out into your ears, so we can see whether or not you would even see this product in your business, or maybe there's something that you want to learn more about specifically in that product and how it works. And so that's where you'll learn something guaranteed at Mobility Field Day. So the way you can participate at Mobility Field Day, for those of you guys who haven't, is the best way to engage with us is through Twitter. And there'll be a hashtag that we use. And if you're watching the live stream and you want to put in a question, you can let us know, and we'll actually say that question for you during the presentation. So we do take questions, we present them for you, and then you'll hear a response from the vendor themselves. So that's pretty much Mobility Field Day 3. I'm pretty excited about this one, and I hope to bring a lot more value than I have in the past 2 Mobility Field Days. And maybe I'll ask more questions, better questions, as I've matured a little in the past 2 years as far as being in this industry and being able to use some of the products that these vendors have brought to us, especially hearing what they've announced previously. It's interesting to see what they're going to bring to the table in terms of how this industry has changed and also converged with a bunch of different acquisitions and mergers and things like that. So that's Mobility Field Day 3. There'll be a link in the show notes where you can actually find out more and learn more about the delegates who will be attending. Our show is brought to you by Audible. Did you know you can ask Alexa to read a book to you? I have an Alexa Dot in my house, and I had my favorite book being read to me, Ready Player One. It was really awesome because audio makes great audiobooks, whether you like to listen to books to get your mind somewhere else or whether you like to learn. Sometimes I like to read biographies. I've been an Audible listener for over a year, and I absolutely love it for my commute. You will too, because the selection on Audible is phenomenal. It seems like every book that comes out in print is also in Audible. So for you guys, you can go to audibletrial.com/clear-to-send, and you can get a book for free right now. Download it and start listening within a few seconds. So again, that's a free book for you guys. Download it at audibletrial.com/clear-to-send. So now we'll get into the meat of our conversation here, the main reason why we have this podcast. And we're going to talk about understanding the 4-way handshake. And this is not a secret handshake that you do with your buddy or a handshake that you do after you score, a 3-pointer on a basketball team, for example. But this is the 4-way handshake in 802.11, where you have your client device and the AP, and there's a secure transmission that needs to be communicated over the air between the device and the AP. And so previously we spoke about the 802.11 open system authentication and association. And that was back in episode 131. So I highly suggest you take a listen at that episode because that's where it all begins. And without the four-way handshake, a device that goes through open system authentication and association, after that association frame exchange just gets joined onto the wireless network. But if you're needing to secure your wireless transmissions, you're using either a pre-shared key, a PSK, or you're probably using 802.1x authentication. And so the four-way handshake actually occurs after the pre-shared key authentication and the 802.1x authentication. Now, it's called the four-way handshake because there are actually four frames that are exchanged between the client and the authenticator. Now, the client is also called the supplicant, and that is your laptop, your mobile device, tablet, whatever it may be that's trying to associate and connect to your wireless network. And your authenticator is typically your access point because your access point's going to receive that communication and send that off to either like a radius server, for example, if you're using 802.1x. And like I said, this all occurs, the four-way handshake occurs after what is called EAP authentication, EAP authentication. And this four-way handshake will be used to establish what is also called a PTK or pairwise transient key. And the way all of these handshakes are done is there is a frame called an EAPOL key frame, EAPOL key, and that forms the four-way handshake. Now, what I'm going to do here, because it is fairly difficult to describe this over audio, in the show notes, head over to the show notes. We will include a file with the PCAP that just shows the four-way handshake. And that way you can follow along with the audio and see which frames I'm talking about. And then also we'll include an image of what that four-way handshake actually looks like between the supplicant and the authenticator. So if you want to get those details, the pictures, and also the PCAP file, head over to cleartosend.net/134 and you'll find the downloads there. So like I said, we're using EAPOL keyframes to form the four-way handshake. The first frame, which is considered as, or called message one, is a frame that's sent from the authenticator or the access point, and it sends an EAPOL keyframe which contains the anons for the PTK generation. So what's an anons? An anons is the authenticator nonce. And in cryptography terms, that's just a number that's used once. And I won't go into further detail there because then now we're really getting into cryptography and security, but just know that in message one, the authenticator is going to send an anons within the first message. And this first message is going to describe the type of encryption that it's going to use, right? And an example of that could be your AES cipher or AES 128-CMAC, for example. And the supplicant uses this message that it receives from the authenticator to generate the S nonce and derive its PTK. And so that delivers us into message 2, which is sent by the supplicant. And again, the supplicant is your wireless device, whether that's a laptop, a phone, or a tablet, whatever it may be. And this is also an EAPOL keyframe. Within this message 2 EAPOL keyframe is going to be the S nonce, the RSNE, or your robust security network element, and a MIC. The S nonce is your supplicant nonce. Like I described earlier, there's the A nonce from the authenticator, and message 2 will contain the supplicant nonce. And then the supplicant will derive its PTK. And you can actually see a lot of details in the PCAP about this message, especially if you open up the PCAP and look at the RSNE, the robust security network element. And you'll see a lot of details there, such as the MIC will be set to bit 1. And this will be confirmed by the authenticator in the following steps. and the RSN element is visible in this message. So you can see all of some of those details that are set there. And this is where you really start to understand how these frame exchanges work. So that was message 1 and message 2. Now we get to message 3. And this is sent by the authenticator. And at this point, the authenticator has derived its PTK and it verified the MIC by the supplicant. And the MIC is the message integrity check. Now, what's also important about message 3, in my opinion, is that this is the message in which the group temporal key is sent. And this is in message 3. This is the GTK, and it's used to encrypt your broadcasts and multicast frames. So that's message 3. Now, in message 4, this is where the supplicant sends the fourth and last epoch keyframe to the authenticator. And this message will notify the authenticator if the temporal keys were installed. And then you'll also see that the secure bit will be set within the RSNE, the robust security network element. So take a look at that and see that the secure bit will be set. And so after this message 4, then the device can now start transmitting data and receiving data over the wireless network. And so in a typical wireless network, you'll have your 802.11 open system authentication. Then you've got your open system association. Then it can either go through PSK, right, or your 802.1x authentication. And then after that, it will do the 4-way handshake. Now, if you don't have a PSK or 802.1x authentication, if you have no authentication at all there, then the 4-way handshake just won't occur at all. So you'll just, you have an open SSID, you just get placed on the network right after you associate. But with security, when you have your authentication, then you will have the 4-way handshake. And so after regular authentication, then comes the 4-way handshake. And you can see that in the PCAP file. If you do any kind of wireless frame sniffing over in a PSK network or 802.1x, you'll see the 4-way handshake as well. So in an 802.1x network, just remember the 4-way handshake follows the EAP authentication frames. And remember, in the PSK network, you'll see the 4-way handshake after the association frames. So it's important to know that there are some threats that are targeting the 4-way handshake, and we've heard these threats this year. This is where WPA3 comes into play to help guard networks against these types of attacks. And specifically, I'm referring to the simultaneous authentication of equals, which is a Dragonfly variant. But I'm actually going to leave that for a different discussion for another episode, because we can actually dive into that a little bit further and talk about how that works, what's new in Wi-Fi security, specifically WPA3, and also some other enhancements to Wi-Fi security. But in this episode, we wanted to keep it fairly short. Life happens, so I've been pretty busy with a lot of different work that I've been doing. I have a day job, and also I've been doing a lot of wireless work on the side. So it's been keeping me preoccupied. And Francois has been busy traveling. He, as you guys know, he is a trainer for Ekahau, so he's been doing a lot of ESS classes. So if you need to get ESS training and you want to get trained by Francois, take a look at what the schedule is on Ekahau's website and hit up Francois and ask him which ones he's doing. Maybe he might know. But yeah, that's our 4-way handshake discussion. Of fairly short discussion there about how that occurs between your supplicant and your authenticator. And just remember, the supplicant is your wireless device that's trying to connect to wireless, and your authenticator is your access point. So there you have it. That's our episode today. Just a reminder to put Mobility Field Day 3 on your calendars, as I'll be attending as a delegate this year. And I hope to see you guys engaging and watching the live stream. And if you guys have any questions, head over to the show notes, download the PCAP file, take a look at the image I put on there to describe the four-way handshake so you can see it visually, what it looks like and what frames are being exchanged back and forth. If you guys have any other questions, hit up us on the show notes. Like I said, cleartosend.net/134. We'll have everything there for you guys. And as always, I want to thank you guys for listening and let us know what else we can present to you guys. If there's any topics, you guys have been submitting some to us via email, and we greatly appreciate that. But I want to thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.